Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center, Pflugerville. We're having an issue with the overheads here, so we'll continue. My subject today is let go and let God. And the context of that is a story about Lot and Lot's wife, okay, and Sodom and Gomorrah, which is a famous biblical story that occurred in Genesis. And I'm going to go back to it, but like anything else, the Bible is actually metaphors of our growth in life. So a lot of people don't understand, but metaphysically, the Bible talks about the different things that occur throughout life on our way back to nirvana, if I can use that terminology, okay? And it's constantly reminding us that we have to go through these fires in order to reach the point where we return to heaven, if we can use that terminology. And heaven is that state of being when everything is perfect. Anybody agree with like to be perfect? And that means everything's taken care of. So we live in an environment where the ego or the human mind has taken over and given us all the stories of what we're doing. And what I want to do, have we get down good? Oh, there it is. Okay. Somehow I'd like to have it up here. Okay, because I'm going to have to look for it. Those of you who haven't met my wonderful daughter, this is Lori. Okay. It went off.
Oh, it's on.
Is it?
You have to look at the screen behind you.
I have to look at the screen behind me? So I'm not going to be able to get it. Okay. Let me develop the story about Lot. The idea is that there were two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, in a valley over in Israel. And those two cities had reached a point of corruption. Anybody familiar with that idea? Some of you might say, sounds like it didn't. No. We're talking about ancient times, okay? And Sodom and Gomorrah were known for issues. Sodom was basically lust and problems. If you understand sodomy in today's world, that's where it came from. And then Gomorrah was known as people wanted control. In other words, we had to run things. Anybody familiar with trying to control your life? Which is one of the issues we're dealing with. And those two cities had to be eliminated at the time. Now, Lot was, with his wife and his two daughters, was a resident of Sodom. And he was told that we're going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, so you better leave. So everybody got it? And they left. And the Bible gets rather involved in getting him to believe that he needs to leave. Anybody ever had to be pushed out the door? Things happen. Anybody familiar with things that happen that you don't happen, but they find out later they really were your eyes, but that's good. I can tell you things that I want. I still want to know what I'm doing here in Austin, Texas. You know, we had that conversation 8 years ago, and things happen. You lose a job here, or this happens, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh my God, the world's coming to an end, or a relationship ends, or whatever it is. That seems to be a traumatic event, but it's an event that pushes us into a new state of being. Okay? And so that's what they were dealing with. Now, what happened was, Lot, his wife, and his two daughters are leaving, and they are told not to look back. Okay? And Sodom and Gomorrah erupted into flames. Okay? So this is a story, and you got to keep in mind this is a metaphor for leaving things behind. Okay? So, one of the symbols for fire is erasing or elimination. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't know that the garbage dumps were known as Gehenna, or that's where people took the garbage at the end of the day or end of the week, and each village would burn its own garbage. And that's where the name hell came from. So hell is not a spot. Hell is a place where you burn up things. If anybody's familiar with that. So the idea behind it was this is big flames. And Lot's wife was the only one that turned around and looked at the fire. In other words, she violated the conversation, don't look back. And the Bible says she turned into a pillar of salt. Okay? Now, if you're familiar with the word idiom, idioms are phrases that mean something other than what they sound like. I use this example all the time. It's could be. Can you imagine trying to explain to somebody 2,000 years from now, I'm in a pickle or hot under the collar, which are idioms about today that mean something totally different than they're saying. And so when you turn to a pillar of salt, you looked back and saw something that was so fearful that you froze. Anybody ever seen somebody freeze in fear? It happens all the time. There's a lot of times that occurs. Familiar with it? And that's what happens to us. When we look back, we freeze and say, oh my God, what's going to happen? What if? And all those stories start mentally. Okay? So the idea is that the Bible is giving us a metaphor. Here's a spiritual principle. Never look back and burn what's behind you and let it go. Okay? So it's part of that message that tells us all the time. If you're going to move forward, you've got to leave things behind you. Okay? Now, what I want to do was, and I'm off on tangent right now. What I want to do is talk about a part of the brain that's called an amygdala. There's, believe it or not, the brain is actually very, very interesting. It's fascinating because we have all this up here is called prefrontal cortex, which is where all the thinking takes place. Then we have back here the stem, and then it goes into things we call the reticular activating system. And if any of you are familiar with that, that's a little nodule on the base of the brain that allows only what you believe is true through. Okay, I'll say that again. It allows only what you believe is true through. Now, what happens is there are, I forget, 50, 60,000 impulses per minute of things that you could think about. And your brain can't handle that, so the reticular activating system is part of the brain that filters out what you need to know. So it filters out the things you believe are true. It filters out fear and things that are. It filters out things that aren't necessary and allows warning signs through. So if you look at fire, you're going to see fire that is going to overwhelm you. So everybody get it? So there's part of the brain that actually protects too much information coming in, but allows emergency things to come in. Okay? Now, there's also a part of the brain which is right in the middle called the amygdala. That's the picture that I wanted to show you. And how it's right in the middle of the brain. And that amygdala is a little knob, and what's the radar? Looking for trouble. Anybody familiar with trouble? And it's always looking for things to get upset about. Okay? Do you ever notice how when your mind starts wandering, it always goes on problems? The amygdala actually runs us. Okay? And what it does is it keeps saying, well, here's something to worry about, here's something to worry about. Oh, yeah, this problem, and the other stuff is coming in. So the brain is formulated to keep us safe in the environment, in the physical environment we live in. Now, the issue is we're not a physical being, we're a spiritual being. We're a spiritual being living in a physical body. So if we're really going to live in a spiritual world, we have to overcome the physical form that we live in. That's the point I want to make. And it takes time to overcome that. Because this is created to keep us safe in the world we're living in. And how does it keep us safe? By showing us everything that could be a problem. So it's a radar constantly looking for trouble all the time. Right? And if we allow it to, it will fill our world with problems. Okay? So the key to this idea is to let it burn up. Now, we've addressed the problem, but the key to it is the Father within, He doeth the work. So the Father within is another conversation or a metaphor for the inner self that you are. And that's with the capital S, the higher self, not the little self, okay? And it's the higher self that is the Father within, the Christ, the universal mind, whatever you wish to call it. So we are a spiritual being living in a physical body, and this physical body has taken over and runs us, because of these parts of the mind that keep us centered. This is, again, I'm going to find that. We'll probably do it next week. But it's actually, we are formulated to live in the physical world, but we're spiritual beings. So you see the problem. So how do I diminish that and live in the spiritual world? Because if I stay here, I'm constantly reacting to what the brain's giving me all the time. And I don't know about you, but my brain finds all kinds of problems.
Mm.
So we're actually hardwired to look at problems. Now, the kingdom of heaven is within. So the code, I look for words to describe it, because it's getting clearer and clearer for me. It is. But there's, if I can, it's like this computer works on code. Okay, and believe it or not, the code is 1 or 0, right? So it's combinations of different things, but it's all the same thing. And that code is there, and it's literally thousands of little bits that tell what the picture should be on the screen. And the same thing happens in our lives. We have codes in the brain. The Father within, He doeth the work, or it doeth the work, or she. By the way, God is also a she. Okay, just to make sure you understand that. As a matter of fact, I'm reading in one of the books I'm reading now, Truth Only Love. It says it's time for us to understand that God is more feminine than masculine. So it's time to start calling her she. I don't know if I should do that or not, but anyway, that's what's going on here. Okay? So the nurturing, caring part of us that lives in love is over here being isolated by this over here. The amygdala and the brain, the way it's structured. So the way to get back in and recode the original kingdom of heaven within is to do meditation and things we talk about. Hang out with each other. Okay? I know in my own life I get sucked into the TV, yes? What do you see on TV? Anybody help me?
Stories.
What?
Stories.
Stories.
Drama.
But we have a choice. We can change it.
Yeah, I know, that's my point. What do you see on the TV?
Points of view, people's truth. They think it's the truth.
People's truth, yeah. Which is created and run by what? The amygdala in other people. Okay? So other people are running us, telling us the way we should be. And the amygdala says, oh, there's one. And we get wired into that. Okay? Now, I am not condemning TV. As a matter of fact, I do get hooked on it. Okay? All I'm saying is be careful what I do when I do it. And the language of God is love. And love is actually neutral. A lot of times people want to equate love with, let's call it lust, if I use that terminology, whatever it is. And love is just a neutral thing that says, I love you. And it's that state of being where I am not criticizing, condemning, or complaining anybody. I'm just being who I am. Okay? A lot of times it's silence. I'm always a little bit, let's just say, skeptical when I hear somebody talk too much. Anybody familiar with that? Because the mind is blabbering. Okay? And I'm off on a tangent now. I'm not sure what to do with it.
You're ready to surrender. You're not.
Yeah, I know.
I just didn't know if you knew that that's where they were.
Thank you. I really wish I had this diagram, okay?
Can you give it to me?
Thank you. That's fine. That's a brand new computer, by the way. Okay.
Can I touch it?
It doesn't have an HDMI output to where it can connect, so you can.
What?
It doesn't have an HDMI output, so you can connect it and see.
Yeah, well, I have to connect my wire. It does connect by Wi-Fi or whatever it is. Okay? And we were on, but then it went off, so I don't know. We'll have to figure that out.
It took a break.
Oh, yeah, took a break.
It needed a nap.
And Paul Rasta, who does presentations all the time, has agreed to help me set that up have it on the screen. And that's brand new tax that we have, the HOA put that in for us.
Oh, no.
Okay, now they didn't do it just for us. Okay. And what I want to get in is that you are and we are all hardwired to live in the physical world, and yet we want to live in the spiritual world, and when we allow the spiritual world to start taking over from the hardwired is when the kingdom of heaven starts operating for us. Okay? And people call it awakening and have been through it. Understanding. And this group, we have chosen a lot of us to be on that path, to become one with God, which is our destination. It's the spiritual path. Okay, and what comes out of the spiritual path? As far as I'm told, happiness. How do you be happy? Somebody help me.
Attitude.
Got to be positive.
See, people think there's a secret to being happy. Do you understand? It's just a choice to be happy.
Choose your thoughts carefully.
Yeah. Okay, and everybody's waiting for that time when something will help me. And there was some physical pleasure, somebody telling me from the outside something. And it's an inside job. It's a decision to be happy. Okay? Yes.
But doesn't everybody take that in different? Everybody's not the same. What you tell me, I take it one way. Randy may take it the other way.
That's correct. And we each make our own choice. And the key to it is, see, that's the path back to the Father's house that the prodigal son was talking about. That's what the metaphor is letting go of that, finding out that I'm in the field starving because I left the Father's house and didn't want to do it the way He told me to do it, so I have to go back on the path.
But you don't get that in your spiritual journey.
That's correct.
Everybody is pretty much on the same journey.
You're right. That's correct. Okay. And how do you do that? It's choice. You understand, things that happen in my life are not somebody else's issue. Okay? In other words, and I hate to do this, but when I go to Madeline, she's not the source of my problems. Right? Or any relationship is not the source of our problems. We are the ones that create the relationship and live in the relationship. And it's our choice to change our thoughts about the relationship. And it's simple. The kingdom of heaven is within. My thinking creates my world. And I have a choice to do what I choose to do. And so if I feel sorry for myself, what happens? I find things to be sorry for myself about. So it's simple. And what I wanted to share with you today is the physical brain is set up to do that. So it's like, here you are, here's what you're stuck with, and how do I get to where I want to go, where life works? I give this up. I start realizing, hey, that's not wrong, it's false. I mean, that's not right, it's false. And I start living in new thinking. And it takes a choice. Now, prayer chaplains have learned to use affirmative prayer as part of unity. Okay, and affirmative prayer is just a positive statement on what's true. So things like, I'm rich, well, and happy, and every phase of my life is in divine order. And if your brain really believed that, what would life be like for you? See, and that's the concept. And it takes time to do that. Now, I've been reading a book this week that is saying, I've got so much in my head, is saying that that's a long path. Which it takes time to return to the Father's house. But within you, each one of you is a Christ self, waiting for us to give up, burn the old stuff, and return to the Father. So, are you familiar with the imagination, using imagination? So, the new work is imagining that you are the Christ within you. And actually seeing that within you, and making up a story that in here is another being called the Christ mind. choice, okay? So it's a choice to think differently. So how do you be happy?
Choose differently.
You had
Be happy. You know, it's like, you know, this morning, you know, I've had people talk to me, somebody said, well, it's hot out. Well, is that really a happy conversation? No. It isn't. You know what? What can you say it's hot out instead of it's hot out? What's good about being hot? Sure, I'm glad it's not cold.
Yep.
Being grateful for air conditioning.
Being grateful for air. You see, there's always another conversation.
It's Texas, it's hot, period.
What?
It's Texas, it's hot, period. Every year, it's the same thing.
Then I have to learn to live in Texas.
And I'd rather live in Texas than live in Wisconsin, where I have to live with the 9-foot snow.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but that, in other words, I'm getting closer, I'm looking at this, how the amygdala traps us into finding problems rather than good things, okay?
Well,
Yes.
It's super interesting when you talk about the brain, because a lot of times the brain doesn't really know what's real and what's not real.
Yes.
It's based on your choices.
It feels
what
the
you
same.
believe, and it's like if you think about how you have a thought of something that makes you anxious, and that thing's not even real. It's your thought that sets off this
Yeah.
chemical reaction in
See,
your body. So
now
it's
we're
just
going back.
being super careful about what you tell yourself, what you believe, and it's that constant monitoring.
Yes.
It's being in your super conscious, monitoring your thoughts and your words and your at all times so that your actions are positive actions.
Now you're looking at, that thing that pulls you there is the amygdala charging, okay? So the main point is to understand we do have a choice and we don't think we do, okay? And it takes time to read and do that, okay? Now, I'm very, very interesting day. I had a very interesting week this week. Okay? Anybody else have a question?
You know, I don't, the heat here never really.
No, I just use that as a,
Yeah, I mean, people say, oh, it's so hot, and I go, whatever,
Yeah, it's
you know,
nice.
whatever.
anybody else? Got it, folks? Anybody remember relationships? Now, what do? We go into a relationship hoping somebody will help me or feed me. In other words, give me feedback, love me, so that I feel better about myself, which is dependent upon what? Somebody outside of me giving me affirmation. No, see, the idea is I have to choose to be who I am, which is a child of God, and I don't need you to affirm me, because I can affirm it, and in the meantime, I can affirm you, and say I love you, and that's the process.
And I love myself.
Say it again.
And we have to love ourselves.
Yeah. So what I'm really working on right now is the ideas. See, the ego is so sneaky that it comes over here and uses positive ideas to keep itself in control. So who runs us? Somebody outside of us runs us rather than we running ourselves. Okay?
And our thoughts run us too.
Yeah.
Because we have to know what we're thinking so we can stop the negativity.
Sometimes, and the point I brought up on the amygdala was there's a little part of our brain that's there to keep us off. It's actually there to keep us in fear. Okay, and it's that. What's that, Randy?
Sometimes it does a very good job.
Yeah, it does. Okay? That's my point. Okay? And it's wonderful how creative it is to create those problems. Okay?
There's a whole discussion about that used to be really helpful, right? When we lived among things that could eat us or
Yes.
hurt us or whatever, but we haven't really evolved. It's still the same structure that it was, and there's really not that much to be afraid of. We're very well protected
Yes.
most of the time, and so something, a tiger chasing you, which would have caused a reaction however many thousands of years ago.
Fear of flight.
Over our brain overreacts.
Isn't that called reptile brain?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Now, stop and think about this. Okay, we're just talking about letting the mind dwell in peace and quiet. Okay? And we're told that our thinking creates the future. Now, if I worry about the future, I'm creating the future to worry about. So it's really sneaky. So the idea is, if I'm going to create the new, I have to just live here and now. Which is right back to some of even Eckhart Tolle's work. The silence right now is the place to allow God to create. In other words, my human brain is busy looking for problems, and as I think, I'm creating those problems over again. So how do I create a future that I'm happy with, and that I'm prosperous, and I'm healthy, and I'm in, let's call them sane relationships, if I can use that terminology. Then I have to be in a neutral position, allowing God or Father within to create the future. In other words, my human self has blown it. Anybody agree? I don't like some of the things I've created. Okay? Now, I like some of the things I've created, but the Father within. So my point is, if you get this, is to let that stuff go and change. Now, things are changing faster than the outside world than they ever have. And if you don't believe that, hang on. Okay, what has changed us in the last 10 years? Okay, just that computer and what it can do. Okay? So the kingdom of heaven is within, and it's never more important to learn how to work with ourselves spiritually so that we're not part of the problem, we're actually part of the solution. Because okay, I'm not going to go into politics. So it's important to be a warrior right now, understanding who we are and where we're going and what we're doing to get there. Okay? So we can be part of the crowd or part of the solution. Yes.
Isn't the old saying is 2 heads are better than one?
2 heads are better than one. The kingdom. Now we're in the relationships. Okay.
In a relationship, you choose that relationship, like Randy and I. We fish. We have a common goal there.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
But it's not just fishing. Is we talk with each other, we change ideas. Some are good, some are bad, or whatever, but you get the choice of that.
Well, I call it,
Is that where he gets all
I
his
get around
ideas
certain
from?
people and my mind works. Anybody agree? You notice that? And I get around other people and my mind shuts down. So now we're getting back into, you are all radiating energies all the time. And we have to decide, do we like the radiation of the people we're with? Or is it time to change? Okay.
Well, the thing is that we have an inner computer, and that inner computer stores everything, negative and positive. So we could be in a situation where the negative computer, which is the subconscious mind, comes up and because we do things as a habit, that negative habit comes up. And so we go with the negative that habit.
Yep.
And so if we then know our weakness and we know our strength, so when that negative habit of eating too much or drinking too much or whatever it is that we do, that we ask to be aligned with divinity, with God, and that He will give us the strength, the intuition, whatever it is that we need to overcome that habit that we have, that habit, that negativity, whatever it is we're working on, and then we can overcome through time, and then say no to the bad habit. And so sometimes it's not us, it's in us, the inner computer is within, but we have to be aware and be stronger and ask for a higher strength to help us to overcome that.
Yeah.
Because we can't do it ourselves.
Well, sometimes we run into people that we think have the answer. And it's interesting that, we have followed some gurus that didn't turn out to be exactly what they said they were. Anybody familiar with that?
Mhm.
So it's very interesting, and everybody's looking for the secret, and the secret is you. Okay?
It's us, right?
So it isn't anybody outside of you. Everybody's looking for somebody to tell them what to do. It ain't there. The kingdom of heaven is within. And the only one that knows what's best for you is you, and it's learning to protect that. As the word sovereign means that you're an individual completely within yourself, responsible and able to control and take care of yourself and provide what's necessary. Okay, and it's when we start looking outside of ourselves and looking for something from somebody else that the situation starts to do. Okay? Even some of the spiritual master teachers. And I'll just let that there. Okay. I would love to continue any more conversations. Madeline's ready to leave, see her?
Bags are packed, she's ready to go.
Okay. What's next?
Amen.
Huh?
Amen.
Amen.